we're gonna see what's up with Tyler. I'm gonna add Tyler to the stacks and see if, because I don't see Tyler. But once again, this could be just me and my shadow here. So let's see what Tyler might look like. Tyler's a blank screen.
I see myself.
Okay.
I hope everybody can see me.
Okay.
I can see Tyler.
Okay. So then that's all right. So then that means that it's just the Wi-Fi here in the building. All right. So that's once again. No, not well. I mean, look, the only thing that should be concerned is me and technology, Tyler. That's how this works. So Tyler, we bring you in as always here at 9:15 on your Thursdays, and when we broke down everything we've been talking about Atlanta United over the last couple of days, and has there been anything that has been stuck in your mind about Atlanta United after you initially started talking about it, and other things pop into your head after the match? Has there been anything that trailed into your brain that has kicked back in after a couple of days after you've had some time to think about what's been going on after the first match of the year?
The world's falling and the season's a bust, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it absolutely.
Yeah, I think this game was very much a showing of what this team doesn't need to do in the first half and a showing of what they have potential to do in the second half. I mean, it was very much a tale of two halves. And I think, to answer your question, the biggest thing that kind of sticks out to me is the defense actually, despite the 1-0 scoreline, actually looked really good. They looked like an improvement. Now, it's a small sample size. I get that. But Stian Gregerson, I mean, we can go back and forth about the penalty and everything, but he's the real deal when it comes to his speed that he talked about, right? And Derek Williams, I thought, was aggressive. Maybe could have been a little bit better with a couple of key passes and everything. But, you know, you've got a defensive triangle, if you want to call it that, of Stian Gregerson, Derek Williams, and Bartosz Slisz. And Slisz, you know, I think he took some time to grow into the game, but you don't play as good of a game in the second half if it's not for Slisz. And so they three are all brand new to this team, and they just need a little bit of time to gel. So now you can look at this next 2 weeks or week and a half as an opportunity for them just to get an extended preseason. You got a tough game out of the way, probably one of your toughest of the season. And yeah, now you're set.
Maddie, first question for Tyler on a Wall Pass Wednesday. Go.
I mean, I completely agree with you. I thought that in the first half, there were some bumps in the road, but I feel like we recovered well in the second half, even though obviously we weren't able to find that goal and equalize the match. I thought we looked pretty solid, but I think going into this break and then going into the next week, but leading up to our home opener, what do you expect is going to be the change or the talk in practice to kind of help better going into that first home match?
I think if I had to pick one thing, it would be the confidence on the ball that you didn't see in that first half, that you started to see. And I think, having talked to Pineda since he's been here and just hearing over the years the things that he focuses on, I haven't heard him say this, so this is me assuming. I'm making an educated guess here, but I think he would not be happy with the amount of lost duels in the first half, because that was really where things were kind of falling apart. You're trying to play out of the back, and the ball that's making it to midfield, or even making it, you know, breaking the midfield line and making it up to Yorgos or Xande Silva or whoever, nobody was able to really trap the ball and progress it further. It was a lot of missed opportunities. And so I think he harps on duels so much and fighting and winning the second ball and everything. And so I think one of his biggest things is going to be going back to the film, looking and showing examples of, hey, had you won this duel, had you trapped the ball here and maybe made a better decision, then we're having a totally different conversation about the first half. And that's what it comes down to, right? Like, this is a team game, but you break it down to individual little bits and pieces of, you know, little duels here, fights on one side of the pitch, matchups that we look for. And they were just a lot of lost opportunities in the first half. So I think being back in front of the bins, the crowd, everybody. I think that's going to make a big difference, and I think ultimately it's going to show what this team is really about, because it's hard to do that when you're away in very hostile territory.
Well, then let me go meet you halfway here.
Okay.
How much of this, how much of this was Atlanta United trying to work through their own, their own first match issues with the triangle spine being new and trying to build out of the back? And how much of this, in your mind, is giving credit to Wilfried Nancy and their defensive game plan against Columbus, where, I'll go ahead and say it, Columbus is a pain in the ass. Yep. They are an absolute pain in the ass defensively. I think that if you can come up with the right matchups and formationally and everything, you can keep an eye on them offensively. But defensively, what Wilfried Nancy does with Columbus in that first 45 minutes, he made sure to pin in Atlanta United, made sure that if there was anybody that had any thought in their mind of passing the ball to Thiago Almada, the second Almada got the ball, it was 2, if not 3 guys collapsing on him and forcing a quick decision away and out, and then having to rethink the whole thing. I think that in the first 45, Columbus had a game plan defensively, and it worked to the way that Wilfried Nancy wanted. Atlanta at the break came out with adjustments and found their way around, and we talked about it when we looked at the numbers back on Monday. The possession numbers basically flipped in the second 45. Atlanta United had 60% of possession, and they were finding their ways to exert their control in the second 45. And so I think that it was almost 2 separate matches that we saw, pain in the ass Columbus, and then adjusted to Columbus with Atlanta United.
Yeah, I agree. And when you look at Columbus, they're very disciplined. I think that's one of the words that I always throw around when I'm talking about Columbus. They know when to press. They know when to back off. And if you were to just watch Columbus in that match, you can see them. They move as a team. They move as a unit, and they know the triggers that they look for to press. They know when to back off and invite a little bit of pressure. And they were doing it so well in the first half. And yeah, I'm sure there was a stern talking to from Pineda or whoever at the half. And they came out and Atlanta made some minor adjustments. It was nothing wholesale, I don't think, right? It was just more of a mentality change, maybe a little tweak here and there. But you got Slish more involved in helping break lines out of the back, which was missing in the first half, and a couple of other things. And you also involved your wings in a more effective way in the second half. And so, yeah, you made the changes you needed to make. And it's just unlucky, honestly, that you didn't pick up a goal out of it, because you were knocking on the door.
There were a couple of opportunities there in the second 45 where a pass was, maybe had a little too much weight. The connection was maybe a half a step off. Once again, you're talking about match week number 1 and trying to get an equalizer there in Columbus. Maddie, go.
You also talked about opportunities. Let's also talk about, especially in net, the opportunities that were stopped by Guzan. I feel like it's been a huge thing going into this season in particular about who the goalkeeper is going to be. Is it going to be Cohen? Is it going to be Guzan? What's going to happen? I know it's only one match. What were your thoughts on Guzan's performance, and going into the rest of the season, what do you expect how that situation is going to kind of flip, and how are we going to see maybe both of them step up?
Cohen who? Right? I just don't. He didn't really put a foot wrong. I think if I was going to pick out anything with Brad in this first match, it always comes down to his we'll just use the word distribution. I always go back to the Instagram picture from last year.
Yes.
But his distribution it's never been that great, right? Like, it's almost something we've learned to live with. But he stood on his head, right? Before the goal, there was one shot, and I forget, I think it might have been Cucho again, where Brad had to lay out entirely to make the save. And then, of course, he makes the penalty save. And so he didn't really do anything wrong in this match. The goal wasn't his fault. He parried it away into the space that he was supposed to parry it away into. And it just so happened that somehow Cucho Hernandez is unmarked running into the box, which is a mistake. That's not his mistake. So, I thought Brad was great. I think it's absolutely now. If it wasn't before, which I admittedly, like I said, I thought Cohen was going to start. I was wrong. It's fine. But now it's definitely Brad's job to go and lose. So I think, though, if there were any time in recent Atlanta United history to where he's going to have somebody serious vying for that position behind him, it's now with Josh Cohen. I think Cohen's really going to push him to even be better. And he's going to be waiting for the moment that Brad does make a mistake so he can get his shot. And that's what you want. Like I would much rather have that kind of serious fight and competition at a goalkeeper spot than we've had in the past couple of years. I think it'll work out well.
And you mentioned Cucho, and Cucho is one of those guys, and we know this from all the other all the other matches that we watch. The great players find ways to get lost in traffic.
Yep.
And you kind of, when you look at somebody like, and you look at somebody like Cucho, you look at somebody like what's his face down there with Messi and friends, actually Messi,
yeah, that guy.
and they have a tendency just to kind of look at everything. They'll be out there on the periphery, and they'll just kind of take everything in. And they'll wait for that moment where the defense is focused on the ball and making sure they're focused on act number one, where someone like Cucho is looking at act number 2 and number 3, and he's surveying everything in 3 dimensions. He's playing, Vulcan chess or whatever. And then he ends up getting lost, ends up working his way to the back post because he's so good at doing those kinds of things. And then, once again, you get lost in traffic. He's there at the back post after the parry. And I will say this, you had 2 defenders for Atlanta United come to the back post immediately. And there was a small window for Cucho to slam that ball into the back of the net. And it ended up that Cucho hit that window and he made it in. It wasn't as easy as folks may look at it to be. It was a small window, and Cucho slammed it shut.
Yeah, and it was if I'm not mistaken, into the roof of the net or very close to it. I mean, it was, you had to make that shot perfect. So, yeah, I can't look at that goal. Now, I can look at other things during the first half and say, man, that really needed to be fixed. But you still, as a defense, you bent and really didn't break much. I mean, if you want to call having that one goal breaking, yes, because at the end of the day, you don't get a point out of the match. But I just think the signs are there of what could be, because again, this was the best attack in the league last year, and you held them to 1 goal. And yeah, Cucho, he's one of the most prolific scorers in MLS at this point, right? So he's going to make you pay if you give him an opportunity, but it wasn't for lack of trying on Atlanta's part.
Maddie, go for it.
Oh, sorry. I was sending an email. I apologize. We've turned. I was listening. I forgot my thing was muted, so I started talking, and then, getting sued when no one could hear me. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Anyway. This matchup, I think one of the biggest things that I always got annoyed with whenever I go online and I see things about a match, especially this match, and how it's oh, we lost, it's over. Our season's dead. This is it. It's over.
I thought it was.
You know what, John? Listen, it could be. It could be. Listen, watch out. I mean, who knows? One game really dictates how an entire season's going to go. Didn't you know?
Yeah, 3.5% of your entire match portfolio. You determine it with that, and then everything goes away.
I've personally been very fond of seasons where Atlanta lost the home opener. I mean, the away opener. It usually works out okay.
It's pretty good for us.
Yep.
I mean, when you end up with a match like this, and it was set on the air. Jason said it on the air. 2 of the top teams, if not the 2 top teams in the Eastern Conference, going at it. Match week number 1, and you get this kind of a result. I think it speaks well early precincts voting about just how crazy the Eastern Conference is going to be, which we thought it was going to be going in. So I think that the madness that's going to be the Eastern Conference will not be for the faint of heart this year. And we got Atlanta on the road at Columbus to give you that early sample size.
Yeah, and this, like you just said, and like we said last week, it is an absolute gauntlet in the Eastern Conference. But I think one more specific thing about this match in general is that Columbus didn't have much turnover at all going from from MLS Cup to game 1 of 2024. It's almost unheard of how little turnover they had. It's kind of wild. So you're essentially having the same starting 11 or the majority of the same. And that does a lot of things for a team when you don't have to worry about building up the chemistry in the same way you would in like Atlanta's case, where you have a lot of new guys coming in, you're trying to settle in. So I can't look at this game super negative. I mean, there's definitely things that need to be fixed for sure, but you already looked better defensively than you did just about any time last year. So I'm okay with it. I really am. Now, you can't go on like a skid, right? You can't go and lose at home and then, have issues from here, but like this one's okay. It's okay. We'll be fine.
Yeah, so I hear. I mean, nothing like having a lockdown free safety like Stian Gregerson at 6'5", closing space the way that he did.
Oh my gosh, he is so good. Like, I know people are probably gonna like shit on him for the penalty.
There's the explicit rating for the morning. There you go.
There it is. Sorry, y'all. I think this is the first time I'm the one who's actually broken that.
Yeah, I think it is.
Oh my god, first for everything. But listen, he's physical. He's huge in the back and he's fast. Yeah. I mean, if he hadn't tracked him down, that would have been 2-0.
Yep.
And I thought it was a soft penalty.
Okay, so you thought it was a soft pen.
I do.
Okay. I could see it both ways. I could see it being he was using his force to like push him over. I can see it. I also can see it as good defending.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a coin toss. And I said it watching it live. I was like, this could go either way. It really could, because you just never know what the ref is going to call, right? I will always go back to Miami 2 years ago when Brooks Lennon got absolutely rocked. And
he's a diver now because of that, by the way.
Right. Yeah. And then that gave me a lifelong irritation of Jair Marufo from that match. So I just, you never know. Like and then we throw in the refereeing with that drama and all, and you just never know what you're going to get. I actually didn't think the ref was bad in this match.
I didn't either.
I just thought this one was soft. I mean, it's a contact sport, guys. You're going to have some contact. And
wait, what?
I know, right? Like, it's a shocker. But
what do you mean?
A little bit of a shoulder into somebody. I feel like Mo Farsi went down really easy. Now, I hope he's okay in terms of the injury, but I don't think that was caused by Stian. I think that was just the way he fell. But I don't know. It could have gone either way. You put yourself in kind of a rough position with it. But the fact that Stian has the speed and the agility to get back and track back and at least give your team a chance is outstanding.
Yeah, halftime with Tyler Pilgrim at ATL Pilgrim at Scarves in Spikes, the letter N, Spikes, hanging out with us here as he always does on Wall Pass Wednesdays here on SDH. And you mentioned the officiate. Well, actually, let's go back to the pen. I think you're spot on about it being 50-50, and it can be called either way because there were camera angles as you were watching it on the video side of things. There was one camera angle, I think it was the low angle, that gave you the idea that Gregerson did shoulder into him and knock him over, and you get the accentuated fall and you get the call. Then there were the other angles that weren't right there on ground level that gave you the idea of, okay, it was shoulder to shoulder, and that's why I didn't think it was if you looked at it from on high. That's why I thought it was if you were looking at it from ground level. So this is the definitive 50-50 movement for a penalty call. And I don't think that the officials that we had, the center refs, in match week 1, I think they accounted for themselves very, very well in a difficult situation. I mean, there were no calls I could think of across the league in match week 1 that involved these replacement refs where it was completely and totally off the rails and Aaron Rodgers into the back of the end zone, touchdown, no touchdown, one of those kinds of things. We didn't have that kind of a moment across the board in match week.
There's
one. There is one, and it was the Miami LA Galaxy where he didn't even touch him.
Yeah, that's second yellow on Marky Delgado. Yes.
Yeah, that was the only one I was like.
But should that not be more about VAR in review from on high than on center ref and our guy Chompy, who wasn't taking anything from anybody. I mean, I think if you needed to have somebody in the Messi and Friends LAG match, it was Chompy, because Chompy was ready to sit there and he wasn't taking any guff from anybody. He ain't taking nothing from no one. You want to mouth off to me? Bang, here's a card. I mean, he wasn't taking it from anybody. I give him credit. I think that was more a VAR review, video assistant, a VAR review that didn't get the second yellow pulled from Delgado more than anything else.
Yeah, for sure. And by that same thought process, you also look at the penalty in the Atlanta Columbus match and think, man, maybe, I mean, it was ultimately VAR that told him to go check it, right? And
yeah, it's Geiger, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it again, that could have gone either way.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I agree. Like, I think the reffing was fine. I really do. The LA Galaxy Miami thing notwithstanding, that was the only one that was like, okay, y'all got that wrong. But again, that was VAR. I didn't have an issue anywhere. I didn't see anything that just stood out to me as honestly anything as a net negative compared to what pro brings.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, and you have folks who I think from match week number 1, if they continue, we don't know how long this is going to continue. They need to get their heads out of the you-know-whats and get a deal done.
Yeah.
But I think that you might have some folks that we saw in match week 1 in the middle might be taking the place of some folks that we're used to seeing in match week 1 normally associated with center reffing. And yes, in my excitement, Alex and David, you are correct that, you can't VAR a yellow. It wasn't a straight red. And even if it was a second yellow, you can't do it. So I know it's wishful thinking on my part. I'm wishing that you could have things completely and totally correct each and every time. You guys are right. I can't, you can't review those kinds of things. But, when you also look at all of these things with the refs and all of this stuff, when you look at match week 1 from say 30,000 feet, and this is all the other matchups across the board, you can mention Messi and Friends in LAG if you want, and any other matchup on your mind. When you have other takeaways from match week 1 in general, what sticks out in your mind?
It worked out pretty good for Atlanta. I think if you're an Atlanta fan, I mean, you had a bunch of draws. You had a bunch of really boring soccer at some points, but you didn't end up with a bunch of results that now it's way too early in the season. Let me preface all of this to be looking at scoreboards.
I thought the season was over, Tyler.
Right. It is. I'm sorry. It just cut it all now. We'll start again next year.
Yes.
But no, I mean, you had some things go your way. You also had some surprises. I was not expecting DC. What happened there?
Yeah, I was not expecting the Belgian bread loaf Christian Benteke to get a hat trick.
Nope, not even kind of. And then win player of the match day. So, that was a surprise. That's also, I'm curious to see if DC can do anything close to that consistently. But I think the vibes, the environments stood out to me. Like the atmospheres at the stadiums looked really good. It seemed just from, being a guy watching different matches and peeking in on them.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as results go, like you actually came out pretty good as an Atlanta fan. So nothing really that stood out to me that just was like, this is either really good or really bad. You made it through week 1 and now we move.
And the season is not over. Emilio, I think, is spot on when it comes to our officials. These guys look like they want to do a job. Pro looks lukewarm. They want to create a circus looking at you, Dickerson.
Preach it, Emilio.
I mean, Emilio's on fire this morning. Yeah, there are some guys who, I mean, seriously, if you look at CCH, Hernandez, who was in the middle for the first match in RSL, and then he had another match on the weekend. You look at Chompy, who wasn't taking any guff from anybody. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of our folks that either listen on tape or part of this live could sit there and they could have a list of folks that are currently a part of the pro roster and go, oh, yep, Dickerson and maybe quick trigger Chris Penso, and there are a couple of others I'm sure that are on the hit list that would sit there and be like, nope, dude's better than you from match week 1, dude's better than you than match week 1. I think that this is the interesting element in this for Pro, is do they pull the trigger and keep any of these guys that they brought in and kind of scare the pants off of the guys that we're used to seeing? And it's like, hey, you're on notice now. I could call these guys who know how to call a match as opposed to the ones that we're used to seeing on a weekly basis. I think that this might be a shot across the bow for some folks.
Yeah,
I hope anyway.
Yeah, I wish they would, because there's nothing like reminding you of job security when there's somebody gunning for your job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't see a problem with it. And I do feel like, yeah, Pro has definitely gotten very comfortable to the point where, like, fans in stands can look up at the Halo board in the bins and see, oh, it's that ref today. Great. Like, that's not good.
No.
So, I think it's a good, I think it's refreshing, really, because I can go on rants about refereeing all day. I understand they have an awful job by my book. Like, I wouldn't want to do that job. Now, they love it, and more power to them. I would never want to be a ref, especially in a tier 1, Division 1 league.
Right.
But you also have to be consistent. That's my biggest thing. Just be consistent. Whatever you're calling, I don't care if you are calling a hockey game or you're calling a basketball game, whether, just call, be consistent with your calls. That's all I care about. And Pro has not done that over the years.
No, you're preaching to the choir here, Tyler. I've said that literally since, like, people always ask me, they're always like, why do you get so mad at the refs in MLS? And I'm like, well, it's not even the fact that, like, I'll look at a game and I'm like, that was reffed very well.
Yeah.
But it's the consistency across all the boards. I'm like, if you're going to call something a penalty in one game, make it a penalty in the next one.
Yeah. Or
if it is the exact same one.
Game.
Exactly. And I even remember there was a game before, I think Atlanta played, and there was a PK. It was like a trip up in the box, and it was a PK. Same thing happened to us in the next game, and it was completely waved off. It was a clear penalty, though. Yeah. I think there needs to be that consistency across all the boards, even if it's in game, if it's across the whole weekend.
Good luck on that.
It's a lot of judgment calls too, which is like, it's another thing of like, hey, you see it on the thing. But I think that's been one of the biggest things. And it's the consistency of it all. It's the fact that some of the pro refs, just want to take it into their own hands and kind of try to dictate the match.
Well, and we also have the egos and the personalities that are associated with it. And you feel like that you are above the fray and all these kinds of situations. And you can tell when you're watching matches who feels that they're the ish, and then there are the ones that kind of go about it. As you mentioned, you've got the Elfaths and the guys that are doing things on an international scale that basically they're like the offensive lineman. A guy like Ismail Elfath, he's got the law, he sets it up, he's got the line, he's not all that demonstrative, but he lets you know how he's feeling. And he lets you know where the line is, and he's going to lay everything out for you each and every time. And then you have folks like Dickerson who want to sit there and make themselves the center of attention. And Parzival with the question, and this is probably the $1 million question: why is it Pro has such a monopoly when there are such inconsistencies? The league is at a point where this shouldn't be the case. And I mean, and Al and Dell says Dickerson was awful in championship also.
Yeah.
Alex says, so we're suggesting a diverse group of last minute replacement refs is going to give us this consistency. Let me add it.
These are the Avengers at this point, Alex.
Yeah.
Avengers.
Yeah. And I think that, with the support system that is built in, I think that these officials that we're seeing in the middle, and obviously the ARs are an entirely different discussion, but I think that where the center refs are concerned, I think that with the support system that is normally in place in Major League Soccer, with the senior officials and the guys that are familiar with the jobs and doing it on a day in, day out basis. I think that there is some promise here with some of these folks that we saw on the weekend, that if they continue to get reps, get adjusted to the speed of the match, get adjusted to all these different things, I think that there's some promise there. And I think that if these guys were in, say, USL Championship, I think that if they cut their teeth there and continued to improve, that you could see them getting more reps in MLS, either as an AR, and continue to have these things kind of grow forward. I think that there is some promise here with what we're seeing with the guys that were put in the middle on the weekend. And once again, as we talked about, it's just reps, because, that way you get your reps and everything is there. Yes, Emilio, the difference between Elfath and Dickerson is galactic. That is absolutely true. That is definitely what the difference is between these two individuals. And it's not just Dickerson and Elfath, but there are others. Ismail Elfath, if you want to say that's the top of the bar, there are some others that we do talk about on a daily basis with officiating. So we got a week off. What are you doing this weekend? Are you actually going to be spending time with family and taking time off, or are you going to have season pass up and running, or what in the background? What's it going to be like for you this weekend?
Well, so, I mean, soccer is the family thing, right? So we'll definitely be watching some matches, but not as, I think, in tune as normal.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, no, I mean, we'll be chilling. We'll be relaxing. We'll be taking a break like Atlanta, which is weird to say. We're week 1, right? Week 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we're going to chill. We're going to enjoy all the other chaos from whatever happens for match day 2 or match day 3 or whatever we technically calling it now.
2.5, sure.
Yeah, 2.5. Yeah, just enjoy it. Enjoy other people getting their legs taken out from under them for a little bit.
There you go. Cut the promo for me about what's going on at Scarves and Spikes.
Yeah, scarvesandspikes.com. It's up and running. We if anybody wants to see me get destroyed by Paolo Neto later, that's happening. So, yeah, we've got the articles coming out and everything else. Just Scarves, the letter N, Spikes, over on Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it, and then follow me at ATL Pilgrim.
What he said. So, Tyler, as always, my friend, thanks for dropping by on a Wall Pass Wednesday. Great to get your perspectives on things, and enjoy everybody else's legs getting cut out from underneath them. We'll catch up with you, obviously, as we go on every Wall Pass Wednesday and every place in between. Thanks for hanging out with us on a Wednesday, as you always do, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
There you go. That's Tyler, and Tyler hangs out with us on Wednesdays. And I think I've just come to the conclusion, I don't know if there's a commonality of thread, but I think that now that when Tyler appears, that's when Maddie cusses. And so I think that this is what we're staring at now. The commonality of Tyler's on the show as a guest, Maddie cusses.